the Great British Summer, I should say late summer. This is now a precedent for what's to come for the autumn. Darker mornings, darker nights, and the onset of SAD, seasonal affective disorder. Something a lot of adults will talk about, but they don't actually seem to look at the symptoms of this for students and young people. And really, it's something that young people are going to be suffering with as well. And we can't discount that. We can't just look at our young people and say, oh, you're just a bit anxious about going back to school. It could be that they are suffering from SAD. There are lots of symptoms to look out for, and I'm going to discuss those in a second. But I think it's a very real thing for adults to dismiss a lot of children's anxieties and possible symptoms of depression as just playing up as bad behaviour. And I think we need to stop that stigma. We have a lot of young people at the moment who are suffering with their mental health. Schools, well, they don't help. They want the students to sit down, be quiet, do the work, get good grades. But there could be other issues going on. And as parents, and me as an educator as well, we have to look out for those signs and symptoms. And if we think that, something a little bit deeper is happening, we have to address it. So what are those signs and symptoms of SAD? According to the NHS, the signs and symptoms of seasonal affective disorder are the following: having a low mood, literally feeling sad, having a lack of interest in activities. You may see that your child is not responsive when they go to their normal, maybe out of school activities, cubs, brownies, guides, scouts, swimming, drama, music lessons, and so forth. They may have feelings of guilt, or they may be feeling hopelessness. This goes hand in hand with the first part, the low mood. And we have to be careful that this is not part of the depression or something more sinister, like I say, depression or anxiety, which of course then could lead to what we're looking at right at the bottom, thoughts of self-harm or actually causing self-harm. And that goes along with the feelings of guilt. If they're not feeling guilty, or they just have the lack of interest, perhaps their symptoms are not so severe, you would find that they're feeling restless, they're up, they're down, it feels like ADHD perhaps, and they have difficulty sleeping. You may attribute to the use of electronics before bedtime, but the difficulty sleeping could also be a sign of a lack of vitamin D. You may also find that your young person is feeling more hungry than usual, and you might just put this down to a growth spurt or hormones. But if it links in with any of these other symptoms, it's something that needs to be addressed with your GP. Now, the NHS have a do and don't section on their website, which I've taken this from. And this is where it gets a little bit more complex. As adults, we can probably force ourselves to go out in the daylight during lunchtime. Kids have their breaks, they have their lunchtime as well, but the weather during the day doesn't always lend itself to going outside, and so they're stuck inside. Regular exercise is another thing that the NHS look to as something that you could help combat the effects of seasonal affective disorder. Luckily in schools, children do have their PE lessons, and hopefully with that interaction with friends at school will help to alleviate some of the symptoms. But again, on drizzly grey days, it isn't always possible to go out and have good exercise. Keeping up contact with friends and family. This is quite essential, and kids are really good at doing this, probably more than adults. You know, we always want to make plans, and then I know lots of people who like it when those plans are cancelled. But this is something that, you know, can go alongside the lack of interest, is making sure your young person carries on with those activities if they have something extracurricular, or just taking them for a walk. Even if it is a little bit drizzly and wet, that is classed as exercise and contact with friends and family. Going to bed at a set time, well, I know with having teenagers myself, this doesn't always happen. So our younger students, our younger kids, we can probably do that with, but our teenagers, it's probably something that you would have to work on a little bit. I know myself with my own. Now, these do's and don'ts are mainly for adults. So here, don't drink lots of alcohol. I guess it's something that can deplete our system of good nutrients, good vitamins, and also enhance those symptoms that we were looking at there. And of course, we always see this one about using electronic devices right before bed. Half an hour would do just to let your young person just relax, calm down, and just process what they've done through the day, have a chat, maybe have a little bit of water to drink, and just ease into their sleep routine. And perhaps even limiting, sometimes it's harder to do this with teenagers, but limiting their devices so that they do switch off at a certain time, or handing their devices over. You know, I know of young people who are still on the phone, still watching TikTok at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then having to get up for school the next day. And of course, when it's dark, in the mornings when they're getting up and it's dark when they're coming home, it's not that great. So for me as an educator, all of my students are one-to-one, and I can see some of these symptoms, and I can ask the students, with also being a trained counsellor, how they are feeling in the day. A lot of my students will tell me, they're very forthright, which is great, and I can pass that information on to their parents. But as a parent, it is handy just to keep a check on those symptoms, just to have a look at your children and see how they're reacting through the day. Ask them how school's been. Did they feel tired? What did they have to eat? Monitor what they're eating when they come home, how they seem to be when they are home. Don't dismiss these signs and symptoms of seasonal affective disorder as just anxiety, as just a little bit of dread going back to school, especially for the year 10 and 11 students who are facing their exams. Just keep a check on them. It's always good. And if you are unsure, please go and see your GP.